has a purpose for not just the Israelites, but for us today. I've been growing out of this. I've been paying more attention to the details and realizing there's power. God, I kind of thought you just put it there just to be putting it there, but there is a purpose. So as we go into this study today, remember on last time we were dealing with Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, one of the most holy days within the Israelite camp, and it dealt with the sacrifices of blood. Also the high priest going in that once a year to make a sacrifice for the Israelites. And we made the comparison on the last time that Jesus is our high priest. I put a picture up there, if you bring that picture up, of the high priest. He would go into that holies of holies and make that sacrifice. Much anxiety in a sense, because he was going before a holy God. As we continue in Leviticus, I believe things have changed. And I could be wrong, this is just my opinion. I believe we become too chummy with God. The reverence for God has kind of slipped from the church in so many ways. I do. He's our daddy. You know, there's a translation in Greek that really calls him Abba Father, that whole process. But even my daddy, you know, even you get close to your daddy, he's still your daddy. And I'm seeing a generation, and even some adults that have been in church a long time, just become just kind of whatever God. You know, we command God. We tell God what to do. That's just not the way it is. And we learn in Leviticus these steps that God always has that final word. Let's do a little review. From last time, we were transitioning. I left some commentary there, and I want you to get the picture of Yom Kippur. First, then, Aaron offered a bull for a sin offering for himself and his what? All right, so think about this. We talked about it in detail, but I got to get in your mind that he had to have an offering before he went in for himself and his family. And the offering he is going to make is for all of Israel. So we know that he cannot be the one that carries our sins, because he's faulty himself. And that's been the whole problem that Jesus solves in the New Testament. Who can stand in our place? If you have sin, you can't stand in my place. You can't stand because you need somebody to stand for you. So there's only one that can be our Savior. His name is Jesus Christ. Taking the bullock's blood with him, Aaron placed hot coals from the brazen altar into the small portable golden censer, filled his hands with incense, and entered into the sacred presence of God behind the veil, where he stood before the Ark of the Covenant with its mercy seat. So get that picture as he comes in. Man, he's thinking, I got to get all this right. Details are important. I made a sacrifice for myself, for my family. Now I'm doing it for all Israel. He comes in, and it's sacred. There's not any music. There's no jumping up and down. This is, you're taking every step with reverence of God. Going, God, if it had not been for your mercies and grace, you're coming in. This is a very solemn point when he goes in the stillness and the quiet. And there he sees the mercy seat. The mercy seat always reminds you, if it not for God, if it had not been for God, you would not leave. Right? And that's what mercy is in our life. You got to keep it in mind. If it had not been for God, none of us would be here right now, because all of us have done something that deserved death. All of us have done stupid things, right? At least one stupid thing. Can I get some amen? All of us have just done at least one stupid thing in our lives that could have caused us death. So we need that mercy seat. There he filled the room with incense, which speaks of what? The prayer, that whole symbol, and also sprinkled the bull's blood on the mercy seats how many times? 7 times, completeness. So that incense of prayer, some other things that are lacking, I believe, in the present-day church is prayer. We just don't pray. A lot of times we need to emotionalize prayer, and it can. The fervent prayer of the righteous availeth much. But just because I'm not emotional necessarily does not mean I'm not fervent. All right? Because I do a lot of things that I'm very fervent at that you're not going to see me jumping up. When I drive my car, I'm fervent when I drive my car. I'm looking around, but you don't see me jumping up in the car going crazy and stuff like that. I'm focused. That's what that fiery means. I'm focused on the Lord, wanting to hear his presence and his direction. So this is that Yom Kippur. Brought another picture when he would go in that sacrifice. God's presence and the incense would go up. So those prayers of all the Israelites going, God, we need your mercy. We need your mercy. And that incense would represent that. Then we go into that portion, Leviticus 16, 15 through 20. If someone would read for us, please.
Then he said, fill the globe of the sin offering, which is for the people. Bring its blood inside the veil. Use that blood as he did with the blood of the poor, and sprinkle it on the mercy seat and before the mercy seat. So he shall make atonement for the holy place, because of the uncleanness of the children of Israel, and because of their transgressions, for all their sins. And so he shall do for the tabernacle of meeting which remains among them in the midst of their uncleanness. There shall be no man in the temple of meeting when he goes in to make atonement in the holy place, until he comes out, that he may make atonement for himself, for his household, and for all the assembly of Israel. And he shall go out to the altar before the Lord, and make atonement for it, and shall take some of the blood of the bull, and some of the blood of the goat, and put it on the horns of the altar all around. Then he shall sprinkle some of the blood on it with his finger 7 times, cleanse it, and consecrate it from uncleanness of the children of Israel. And when he has made an end of atonement for the holy place, the tabernacle of meeting and the altar, he shall bring the live goat.
Where does he put his fingers at? In those scriptures, where does he put his fingers at? In the blood. In the blood. In the blood. In the blood. Connected. We talk about the blood, and I talked about that before. We just don't understand the power of the blood. The life is in the blood. I'm looking at that commentary. Then Aaron shall kill the goat of the sin offering. Okay, so there had to be an offering, a shedding of blood. Verse 15. After casting lots to see which of the 2 goats would be slain. We talked about it on last time. That scapegoat had to be sent out. Lots were pulled for that. With that blood, Aaron again entered inside the veil and sprinkled this blood where? On the mercy seat to atone for the holy place, and then the same for the tabernacle. So this is critical. So you get all these sacrifices for the people, but even the place had to have an atonement. It had to be cleansed. And I often do this. I used to go to a whole bunch, and probably many of you don't know. I used to come in and just pray. I would get to church early and just pray over Ebenezer. Just welcoming God's presence and the ministering angels, and just kind of walk around at this place, be ready to receive God's presence. And I think we need more of that. We need it in our homes. You know, I know Bianca and I, we used to do it in our home. We don't do it as much. Sometimes you just take God's peace for granted. But if you've ever been in some place, I've been in some churches, I was like, there's no peace here. I could feel it when I walked in. It wasn't that they were fighting. I could just feel, it's just the atmosphere wasn't there. It's not that we set the atmosphere. It's just making it ready to receive God's presence. And this is what has to be done. The blood on the mercy seat to atone for the holy place, then the same for the tabernacle, and finally for the altar burnt offerings. The blood was fully what? Everything had to be ready to receive that blood, to receive that symbol of God's presence. Everything, even the altar that it was put on. We've got a picture up there. Behind that veil, he would go in, that mercy seat was there, and we see it so beautiful, but I never want you to forget, because they don't often get the pictures right, there's blood everywhere. There's blood that's covering this. So the beauty of the gold, the beauty of the colors are actually skewed because the blood covers it. If you ever seen a bloody scene, it's terrible. Blood, I mean, it covers, and you see it. It stands out. God wanted the Israelites, the high priest, all those that are in charge to understand the blood is the cover. All right? The blood is the cover. We have to have a shedding of blood. If Jesus hadn't shed his blood on that cross, there would be no atonement. He is our Yom Kippur. He is our holies of holies. He is our everything. And it's not about the building of the temple, the tabernacle. It's about him dwelling on the inside of us. So, since we make that jump, think about our bodies that we dwell in. All right, we're that temple, we're that tabernacle where God is dwelling on the inside of us, all because of his sacrifices. How much more so, Mark has read it earlier when we started out before prayer, how much more so should we be holy? In everything that we do, if God dwells on the inside, then he can only possess as much as we want to give to him. That holiness of our lives and our minds in every part. And some of us struggle because we want God to just kind of dwell in a portion of us. We go, God, take my pinky finger. It's yours, just have your way in my pinky finger. And God is saying, I want not just your pinky finger, I want your hands, I want your arms, I want your whole entire body. Look at this, Leviticus 16:21 through 22. Someone read, please.
Aaron shall lay both his hands on the head of the live goat, confess over it all the iniquities of the children of Israel, and all their transgressions concerning all their sins, putting them on the head of the goat, and shall send it away into the wilderness by the hand of a suitable man. The goat shall bear on itself all their iniquities to an uninhabited land, and he shall release the goat in the wilderness.
What stands out in those verses? There's a lot, but what are a few things that stand out? A goat, okay. All the iniquities. All the iniquities. How often in our lives do we, when we come before God, do we kind of just skip stuff? I mean, all of our iniquities. What's something else that sticks out? Verse 21, I'll give you a hint. Both his hands, transgressions, in the hand of a what? What does suitable mean? Worthy. I'm telling you, we take for granted, and I'll say this over and over because it's going to kind of be that subtopic, just that we can come in God's presence. Just that we can be used. God forbid that we ever become too big-headed and say, it's about us, or because we're so smart, or because we're so grand. I'm telling you, we're so feeble. All it takes is a certain pain somewhere, or some problem within our lives. Anybody know that? I'm telling you, you can be so strong and everything, and all of a sudden you get a pain in your toe. It'll just mess up your day. And God reminds us, if it had not been for him on our side, none of us would make it. None of us would make it. So this whole process, this suitable man, looking at that commentary, someone read at that point.
At that point, Aaron placed his hands on the head of the living goat, the scapegoat, confessed the sins of the people on it, putting them upon the head of the goat, and then sent the goat away into the wilderness. This symbolism pictures not only Christ's death for our sins in the first goat, but also his bearing away the sins of the world in the second goat.
So the first goat, he is killed because of sins. So the second goat, got to picture that. Imagine Aaron, I want you to get in there. He has already made sacrifice for himself and his family. Everything's placed. He places his hands on that goat's head. And what does he begin to do? Confess the sins. Confess the sins. Oh God, forgive us for this. Forgive us for our lack of faithfulness. Forgive us as he connects with that goat. Poor goat. Poor goat don't know what's going on. All he knows is that his cousin just got killed. He's just wondering what's going to happen to me. Are they getting ready to slip? Because they would also place their hand to slit the throat of the animal. But this animal is the one that's going to be sent out. All right? So we see all these praying. The goat is there. And we find out as he puts his hands on that, there's a transfer. God uses it as a symbolism that now, hey, one goat has died for your sins, but now this goat bears it. It is sent out. And that's what Jesus did. He bears. That means even now, as we sin and we have our issues, we've got someone who bears them for us. He's interceding for us on a daily basis. The enemy is known as the accuser. What does he accuse us of? He accuses when we sin, when we mess up. It's kind of like, okay, God, Shanta just messed up. And I know, I'm sorry, Shanta, I'm using you. I don't know about your life, but I'm just assuming. Shanta just messed up, and you were with her yesterday, but she sinned today. Can I kill her? That's what the accuser does. Because sin, the wages of sin is. Yeah. All right, so can I kill her? Can I take her out? Can I mess up her family? And then God goes, no, she's covered. She's covered in the blood. So Shanta, she may not have asked that right then, but prayerfully she's confessing her sins. Lord, I confess my sins. You have borne my sins. Even that stuff that I don't know was a sin, you've already borne that. And now the devil's like, okay, I see there's a covering, I can't get to her. And we're protected in our lives simply because he bears our sins. He bears, because there's so many things that we missed out, so much unforgiveness that sometimes can seep into our hearts, and the enemy's accusing, and God's like, no, it's been cured. It's been cured. And I'll tell you, that is good news. That is such good news. And it's that picture, and I want you to get in your mind of Jesus, most definitely, but the picture of that scapegoat being released out, carrying those sins away. So I want to read this next portion of Scripture, Leviticus 16:23 through 28.
Then Aaron shall come into the tabernacle of meeting, should take off the linen garments which he put on when he went into the holy place, and shall leave them there. And he shall wash his body with water in a holy place, put on his garments, come out and offer his burnt offering, and the burnt offering of the people, and make atonement for himself and for the people. The fat of the sins offering he shall burn on the altar, and he who released the goat as the scapegoat shall wash his clothes, and bathe his body in water, and afterwards he may come into the camp, the bull for the sin offering and the goat for the sin offering, whose blood was brought into make atonement into the holy place. Shall be carried outside the camp, and they shall burn in the fire their skins, their flesh, and their offal. Then he who burns them shall wash his clothes and bathe his body in water, and afterwards he may come into the camp.
Coming in contact with sin actually contaminates those who touch it. All right, we've talked about over a dead body, all these things. Even in offering of that, there's a contamination process, and we have to make sure and understand this when we're dealing with it. And I guess our ministers, the people who pray, and you may come to them for prayer, they have to make sure they got their own self right. Because if they're not right, they can actually pick up stuff from you. So you're praying to God, would you help me pray? And so now God is covering that person. So guess what? If you're not right, the enemy accuses you, you can pick up some stuff. And some of y'all don't know what y'all dealing with. When people say, come touch and agree with me, come pray, you need to check yourself first. And you're like, no, I would love to, but I got some stuff, I got to get some stuff right with my own wife and family, because you don't need other folks' stuff piling up in your life. And that's what happens to some of our leaders sometimes. Sometimes they're not taking care of their own issues and struggles, and eventually they disintegrate because all that stuff is attaching to them. If you look at that, there's a lot of washing going on. Later, after washing and changing clothes, Aaron offered 2 burnt offerings. One for who? And one for? This is critical. This is key. I learned a long time ago, even as a pastor minister, when I'm ministering, man, it can take a lot out of you. Not just the emotional part, but I realize there's a spiritual warfare that's going on. Oftentimes on Monday can be one of the weakest days because you put out so much on Sunday and during the week, and you're kind of going there, and you got to recharge. You got to make sure, okay, Lord, I'm seeking you, and you kind of have to have downtime. And the same thing in your life. When you get through with spiritual warfare, getting stuff right, it can pull something out. So you got to wash yourself, make an atonement, go before God so that you can be strong. Look at this next part. It explains even further as you see that fire, that sacrifice. Someone read Leviticus 16:29 through 31.
This shall be a statute forever. In the 7th month and the 10th day of the month, you shall afflict your souls and do no work, Lord, whether a native of your own country or a stranger who dwells among you. For on that day the priest shall make atonement for you, to cleanse you, that you may be clean from all your sins before the Lord. It is a Sabbath of solemn rest for you, and you shall afflict your souls. It is a statute forever.
This is a critical scripture. We know that it's being applied to the Israelites, Old Testament, but I really believe this application is for us in this day too. I think we can be too busy. I really do. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you have a job or you're retired. You're just too busy. Here's some things that stick out. We'll talk about in the commentary, but what sticks out in these verses? What does it say? What does God say to them? I heard rest. It says rest. How rest though? Do not work at all. All. Looking at your phone, does that work? Some people say no, so some people say yes. What about cooking food? Will it work? Somebody said just rest. What about eating the food? So we can come to the conclusion that God defines what work is. All right? Because we can, some of us, we work and we don't consider it work. But it is work. But notice within this, the Day of Atonement was a national day of what? All right. Fasting. What does fasting mean? Not eating specifically. Now we have in the New Testament church, we define what fasting is. Fasting is not eating Twinkies on Tuesdays. That's not fasting. That's some kind of dietary restriction that you put on the church or something like that. Fasting literally is going without food. All right. Look at the Hebrew. Look at the Greek. It means to abstain for food. It seems like in this day and time, though, that so many people have issues, diabetics and medication and all those things, but it still does not negate the Word of God. All right, so you have to do what your doctor wants you to do. I understand that, but there is a discipline that God said called fasting that we can go without food. All right, and be okay. He talks about this affliction. So, and also a Sabbath during which no work could be done. No work could be done. No matter on what day of the week the 7th day of the 10th month fell. All right, so whenever it fell, nothing could be done. Everything is stopped. How would our lives be if we had a day that was really a Sabbath? A day that really, we all agree, and some of you are older than me, I kind of remember when Sundays used to be kind of more of a Sabbath. You know, there were stores were shut down. I still remember when stores started opening up on Sunday. It was like 1 o'clock. They would come over on 1 o'clock. But still, all that morning, no stores, nothing would be open. You couldn't do anything. I don't even remember TV working. Actually, I don't know. It was just kind of a solemn time, a quietest time. I remember as I got older, my dad we'd be going to church and we'd see somebody mowing their yard on Sunday. Which, when I was young, nobody mowed their yard on Sunday. Nobody. And because as I got older, he would say, "No, they're Jehovah's Witnesses." And then mom would say, "They're going to hell." You know, it's just like, these older, why they mow their yard on Sunday? You know, really. And now, things have changed. I mean, there is no rest. There is no day. There is no Sabbath. No way, shape, or form, unless you try to put it aside for yourself. But even the great Christians that we are, many times we don't have a time, an extended time that we set aside just to seek the Lord, just to rest. Just everything's off. There's no work. I'm not eating. I'm just in God's presence. And if you fall in that, I want to encourage you tonight. I believe God is speaking. You need to set aside a time. You need to set aside a time. Maybe start out with 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Maybe you don't have a whole day. But somehow you need to start in your life. I need to refresh. And I'm telling you, when you start doing that, your life is going to change. You're going to become strong in the Lord because now you have time to hear from Him. Many of us, in our little 2-minute prayers, we're talking to God, but we never take time to hear from God. Right? We talk to God, tell Him what we want, and we say bye, and we get up and we walk out. God's like, I thought this was a communication. Deacon Lynn.
Yes, President, I'm not going to say too, before we get back to stove, we cut our wood up on Saturday for cooking. And the chicken to be killed, we keep that killed on Saturday. Yeah. But the other kind of change is starting to have the stores open up for other now, it's all day.
Amen. I mean, it's just so many things. Well, there's some hands. Yes, ma'am.
I remember all the stores were closed. You could everything on the weekend. You know, the stores and even those who are on farms and things like that. Only thing you did was take care of your animals, make sure they were fed and getting water and all that. So as far as working, you didn't do anything. You did all your chores on the weekend. And so if you had washing to do, ironing to do, housework to do, you do that. You were at church on Sunday. You spent a lot of hours in church. When you go home, and you eat dinner, your supper, and then you go back to church. So that was both on the weekend, and you have time to rest. You had the time to rest, because if you drove a car, you gassed up on the weekend. You know, and so if you ran out of gas, too bad.
I mean, Deacon Kelly said something. He said we would get used to it. I think if we decided, okay, it's Sunday, day of rest, period. Some of y'all about go crazy because you're so used to doing stuff. I pick on my kids all the time, so I'm not gonna stop anymore. But some of my kids, really, I know. I realize if everything was cut, and we did. I used to proclaim a Sabbath in our house, and I was so stressed. I was working so much to keep the Sabbath up. I'm like, forget this. I'm taking my own self crazy. You know, I'm trying to proclaim the Sabbath, and I'm like the guard trying to produce Sabbath in the house. This is driving me crazy. But so many times we're so busy. We just gotta do this. We got all these ideas. We gotta put them down. And with our devices, we carry our computers in our pockets now. So now we're connected. We're on social media. We're so connected. Email and phone. People calling us all the time and texting us. And y'all get calls in church. This is amazing. They don't know y'all in church. I mean, really, it's just because we become so important, and everything's a 24-hour, 7-day, just push. But what if again we could reclaim the Sabbath? Maybe we could do that this year. Maybe we fast each year. Maybe I'll put within there, we're going to do a Sabbath. We're going to do a Sabbath where we're going to fast that day and just want you to take off and not do anything. He said, let me know what day that is.
I just want to say that when I was growing up back in the island, on Sunday, all you hear is church bells. You couldn't go to the store, you couldn't go to the market, you couldn't purchase nothing. But in today's society now, you find that people are more ungodly. They're more concerned about going to work, making money, selling goods and products. As far as keeping the day holy, the Sabbath holy, they're not into that. The world is more ungodly according to what Jesus said. we're becoming more and more ungodly, leading up to the day when Christ returns.
Amen. Amen. So true. Even us. Let's not just take, but just us. When do we really have a time that we seek the Lord? You know, it's not for me on Sunday per se. If you're a leader on Sunday, you're working on Sunday. I'm working on Sunday. So when do we set aside a time to really seek the Lord for ourselves? And this is why what the Lord puts to the Israelites is so important. Yes.
Should we not set the example by not shopping on Sunday? I'm just asking a question, you know. Because I mean, for a long time, really, I feel a conviction about it. Because I grew up, you know, we didn't do that. I mean, I remember my son, 4 years old, he started tuning out, going to church on Sunday, said, that man's cutting grass, Mama, that's not right, he's going to hell. And I had to help him understand that. And it hasn't been that long ago. So I'm just saying, now, you know, he thinks none of us flying out on Sunday morning and not being in church. And I'm like, okay, can't you cancel your flight from Sunday to Monday, because that was the conviction then. But see how we've changed, like you said. So are we wrong? Should we set the standard and say we're not shopping on Sunday? We're not gonna go shopping for Christmas on Sunday. Should we not do that?
That's a good point, but this is what the Israelites ran into. If we really do a Sabbath, this is what's going to happen in your life. When you start thinking like that, all right? So how does my water run? Isn't there someone that has to kind of maintain and make sure that goes? So you go, well, I won't use my water. And you go, what about my electricity? You know, is there somebody that has to be on call during that time? I don't want to, so we go, well, I'm not going to use lights today. And you start to get to a certain point, and this is where the Israelites were. They would get to a point that they say, okay, we're not going to use electricity. We're not going to use water. We're not going to use any of those things. So they would set up for really, this is the present day Jewish people that observe the Sabbath. They would have to do all these legalistic things just to maintain the Sabbath. And I agree. I think there should be an example, but it's got to be in our hearts. Because when I start going Sunday, no electricity, no water, you can't eat, you can't go to KNW, you can't go to Golden Corral because you're causing the word. You can't get gas. You can be like, I'll go to another church because
Well, I'm talking about making the, yeah, we have to never do this. I'm talking about the shift when we don't have to. Yes, those necessities, like, you know, the medical people, they have to work on Sunday. I'm not talking about being legalistic about it. I'm just saying when we can choose, let's just say, why don't we shop Saturday rather than Sunday? Because there are people who are deciding, well, I'm getting out of here so I'm going to shop, or I can go to church because I got to shop. Because a lot of people are out there. I'm talking about the choices that we make for things that we don't have to.
But think about it, and that's a great point, but what we have to do becomes different for all of us. Do we have to eat on Sunday? Well, somebody said, I do. I gotta eat on Sunday. You know, I mean, do we have to use our electricity on Sunday? And so it's the choices, and that's why you bring out a great point, but it goes back to our hearts. And if God convicts you not to shop, don't shop. If God convicts you not to eat, don't eat. But I think we can all agree things have changed. And I don't believe we really have a Sabbath in the light that God wants us. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this could be because I'm young, I'm 21, but we shouldn't make such a big deal of the Sabbath because it's supposed to be Friday evening until like noon on Saturday.
Correct.
So why are y'all making a big deal about Sunday and y'all aren't celebrating it on the correct day to begin with?
Because that's the Jewish does it on the Sabbath, the evening. But for the Christians, we have chosen Sunday morning.
Just take one.
And so New Testament says, and this is the other thing, Sabbath is every day. So how do you reconcile that? It does. It says our Sabbath unto God is every day. But there should be a time that we set aside exclusively for God. So you make a good point. And that's why when we get legalistic, we get in trouble, because now we're going letter of the law, we're doing all these things. What is the Sabbath and everything? And I could take you back to the Gregorian calendar and prove that even our Saturday and Sunday is jacked up. That our Sunday that we say is Sunday is not really our Sunday because of all this other stuff. So that's what legalistic ways gets us to that point. But you're right, that's why we got Jesus. Thank God for his grace. But when we look at this, we realize he wants us to be better. There was some hands tapped.
I mean, it's just as simple. I know I've been convicted of leaving my phone in my car during church service. Some of you are sitting here gasping, we want to not shop on Sunday, but we can't be disconnected with the world. Well, what if so-and-so calls me? Well, what if such and such needs me to do so-and-so? Well, what if somebody on the other side of the world needs, and we can't even not be needed for a time. Sabbath is not for us to show how much we care about Christ. Sabbath is for Christ to show how much he cares about us. I was listening to a podcast about how at the Bible, when they started it, they were coming out of slavery, where they did work every single day because they didn't have any rest. And so the first thing that God places in the Bible is this Sabbath and how he rests from his work and how that helps us to trust in him. And so when we put all these legalistic things on it and we're like, I can't do this, I can't do that, you miss out on Christ loves us so much. When my dad does something for me, I'm not going, well, I can't do this because dad wants me to do so-and-so. I'm like, when we go out to eat and, I pay for things sometimes, but I might be like, Dad's got it today. Or when we went on vacation, I'm like, Dad's got this today. And I rest in who my family is. And so oftentimes we're so agitated, but if we really knew Christ and we really had a relationship with him, it wouldn't matter. We're like, you know what, today I'm just going to rest in what my dad has already done for me instead of being so worried about all this stuff that the world has for me to do.
How often do we miss out on that rest?
Things are much more important today. It's like we have electricity and pumps in our wells. Frank, he's enough to do over the weekend and use it on one tub or two tubs on three. If we have the size. But, we've been working on Sunday. But now we're all smart and stuff and we've got concerns to everything.
Thank you, Allianne. Steve.
Yes, I think, as we read and study the Bible, how God accounts for certain things that we do right. If we, come out to Bible study every Wednesday just to be simple. Or if we come to really to seek him and study, study his word so we can try to be more like him. Or Monday night Bible study, or Sunday school, or even 11 o'clock service. If we come just to show a big hat on, or come to show our new clothes off or whatnot, he knows. But if we're doing it to serve and try to affect our lives so we can become better Christians, he knows that too. So, we can do whatever we want to do, God knows. It's the reason that we're doing it. If we took all 24 hours on Sunday and didn't do anything, but the only reason we were doing it is to show Pastor Wood that we are keeping the seventh day week. That's one thing, but if we took 8 hours out of a day and we, took that, we're not going to work our regular job. We're not going to do things that we normally do because we respect that day as the Sabbath. But God knows. I think that's all he's asking is for us to be real.
Okay. Heart. It's about heart. Brother Bang, then we'll get those scriptures.
I wanted to point out this, that years ago in my study that, I think it was the Hebrews, if I make no mistake, they had a disagreement about the Sabbath. And as I read on it, was saying that what they did, they took Sabbath, got the Sunday, they called what the Lord's Day, because Jesus rose on the third day.
Right, and that's what we were talking about. But again, I think the great summary of it is our heart, our connection with the Lord. But I want you to think, what is your connection? Whether it's on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, are you spending time resting in the Lord any of those days? Or are you just constantly about yourself and kind of God is like the sprinkle that you put on it? He's not the real me. He's just kind of a sprinkle in our lives because you can't make it on sprinkles. You need him totally. Look at these next verses, Leviticus 16:32 through 34. Someone read, please.
And the priest who is anointed and consecrated to minister as priest in his father's place shall make atonement and put on the linen clothes, the holy garments. Then he shall make atonement for the holy sanctuary, and he shall make atonement for the tabernacle of meeting and for the altar, and he shall make atonement for the priests and for all the people of the assembly. This shall be an everlasting statute for you, to make atonement for the children of Israel for all their sins once a year. And he did as the Lord commanded Moses.
This whole process is the kind of summary of what we just went through. This was an everlasting statute. That means it lasts. So the symbol of this, maybe not necessarily all the details, is still lasting even today, that we can get an understanding of that. Jesus Christ is the one who has made atonement for everything. To make an atonement for the children of Israel for all their sins once a year. Hebrews 9:7 portrays this, while Hebrews 9:12 contrasts this with Christ's work, saying, neither by the blood of goats and calves, but by his own blood he entered in once into the holy place, having obtained eternal redemption for us. That is awesome. So now the picture is, again, what we started out with, the blood. All right, the blood. Jesus' blood, he goes in not once a year, but one time, period. That's good. The high priest, the Old Testament, had to go every year, once a year. Jesus goes in once and once for all, and it's done. That is good news. And so we get to the point I'm talking about the sanctity of blood. The sanctity of blood. So we're going to get into the details of why is blood so important? Why is, give the gift of life. You see that blood. Why is blood so important? I told you I've got some deaf friends, and one thing that they share, I don't know is it because they're deaf, but they cannot stand to see their own blood. If they see their own blood, they fall out. Yeah, really, that's a trait. It's something about seeing their own blood. Now, they can see other people's blood, and they're okay. But if they see their own blood, out. And there is some of you may be like that too. You can get blood taken, but if you look, you see it's your blood coming out of you, you're like, I'm out of here. Your palpitations start happening, everything. There's something about the blood. The blood is critical. There's life. I don't want to mean to gross you out or anything, but even animals know blood. They can smell blood. How can I say this without, it's kind of PG-13, but our dog, he lives in the house. If there's menstruation that's going on with a girl, he can smell that. He can sense that. And he can find it. It doesn't matter what we do. If that door is open, he's going to find that because there's life. There's life in that blood. So the sanctity of the blood. Let's get a portion of this section. Leviticus 17:1 and 2. Someone read, please.
The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to Aaron, to his sons, and to all the children of Israel, saying to them, this is the thing the Lord has commanded to say.
This chapter, as we go into it, contains some solemn commands. All right, these are some serious things that I really want you to get in your mind, which are related both to chapter 16 and to the sacrifices of chapters 1 through 7. So everything that we read is serious, but when God puts, these are solemn commands, he wants the Israelites to understand, I need you to hear. I need you to hear. And I feel like so often in church, as we read through the word, we just don't take it as solemn. We kind of go, well, that's for Deacon Rudd, or that's for Deacon Lynn. But everything that we read and we take in, it speaks to us. It's for our life. That's why God has left us here, that we can be transformed, become like him. Look at this next part. Someone read Leviticus 17:3 and 4.
Whatever man of the house of Israel who kills an ox or lamb or goat in his camp, or who kills it outside the camp, and does not bring it to the door of the tabernacle meeting to offer an offering to the Lord before the tabernacle, the guilt of bloodshed shall be imputed to that man. He has shed blood, and that man shall be cut off from among his people.
All right. Start last section, scripture we're going to deal with But blood, there were laws to regulate how you dealt with blood. If there was blood shed, God said, I just don't want you to shed blood without realizing that blood is important. If you look at this, it says these regulations have universal application. The killing of any animal for food had to be done at what? At the tabernacle where all regular sacrifices were made. Why? Because the blood. God said, you just can't do it where you want to do it. You have to do it in the proper way. Someone who violated this would be cut off from among his people. A reference either to death, Exodus 31:14, or to excommunication. Blood. We all feel this. Even in our society now, these mass killings, the reason it's messing with our minds, because so much blood is shed at one time. And the people who are shedding, it seems like they have no remorse. They just become hard. And in our hearts, we understand blood, life is so important. It is so important. And we find out in the Old Testament, God has put laws to govern these. So as we go forth on next time, please study ahead. We're going to get into all the details. How were the Levites, the leaders, and also the Israelites supposed to deal with anything that believed? And I want you to start looking at your life and think how you deal with things that believe. All right? So when it comes to blood and looking at our society, how do we deal with blood? All right? I want you to, and you're going to see a lot of correlation from what we've read in the Old Testament. Yes, sir.
And, you know, I look at what you're saying about what it says about the act when you think about the mass killing. Because the people who killed the other week is that a lot of times I would think, you know, what did someone do something to deserve this? Maybe it's the act itself. It doesn't matter if it's innocent blood or not. It's just the act itself.
Right.
I think what really touched me was that father who got the news said that his son had died because what? And he really broke down and he was calling the name of the Lord. And it really touched me because I put myself in his position and the same thing happened to me. But the shedding of the act of this thing, what the scripture says of not the blood exposed for the cat.
Correct. And we're going to talk about it over and over again. Any final comments? Come on to your feet. Let's close out. The blood